Hello, everyone. I will now discuss with you about Module 15 on transfer of learning. And the objectives of this module is for you to be able to explain how transfer of learning occurs, identify the factors and the conditions that affect transfer of learning, and of course, to apply these principles so that as a future teacher, you'll be able to um, have transfer of learning with your students. Transfer of learning will focus on first the types of transfer and the conditions and principles of transfer. Now, teachers want their students to be able to apply what they learn and especially the skills that the teachers have taught their students. When one recognizes a situation as something similar to the way to which he has experienced before, there will be more likelihood that he will be able to apply the skills that he learned before into this new situation. So this tells us what transfer of learning is all about. So it is applying to another situation what one has previously learned. For example, if one knows how to ride a bicycle, then we can expect that it will help him learn to ride the motorcycle quickly, no, or easier than for somebody who would want to learn how to ride the motorcycle without knowing how to ride a bike. Or it can also be people who used the typewriter before will be able to adjust into using the keyboard. Or maybe nowadays it's the opposite. Since everybody is using the keyboard, when you see the typewriter, you adjust, you use your knowledge in using the keyboard in order to somehow be able to use the typewriter. Or for example, the person is using Galaxy Note 4, there will be little difficulty to be able to use Galaxy Note 7. So it's no the skills you know about or you previously know will help you in learning a new skill, provided they are quite similar. So this is what transfer of learning is all about. No, it involves being able to apply what we know. So if you have classroom demonstrations in your classrooms, in your classes, this will help you when you go out in actual classrooms and also do lesson demonstrations. Or if you had practicum, that's the whole point of practicum, is to give you a familiar, a more similar environment where you would actually apply your teaching skills. So this is transfer of learning. So other examples may be the reason why you're taking math courses for those who will specialize in the sciences, like in physics, you also use math there, in chemistry. So, knowledge in those preliminary subjects help us in the subsequent subjects. Learning how to get along with siblings, with your brothers and sisters, may prepare one for getting along better with others. So there are different types of transfer. We have the positive transfer, the negative transfer, near transfer, and far transfer. So let's take them one by one. When we say positive transfer, it occurs when learning improves performance in some other context. That means whatever you learned previously makes you do well in this other context. That's positive transfer. For example, a speaker of Spanish would find it easier to learn the Mexican language than the Japanese. Why? Because Spanish and Mexican languages would have certain things similar with each other. So, as you mentioned, it occurs Positive transfer occurs when learning in one context improves performance in some other context. So the Spanish speaker would do well in Mexican than in the Japanese language. So that is positive transfer. Now, negative transfer occurs when learning in one context impacts negatively on performance in another. So it's the opposite. This time, what you know previously will will make it difficult for you to learn a new skill because of how different this previous learning is to the new one. For example, a student previously learned that when the subject is singular, you will put S at the end of the verb. And when it is plural, then it's just the base word, no S, no? However, the subjects I and you do not follow the rule. If the student have not learned the exception properly, he will be adding S at the end of the verb. Okay? So it's like, or maybe it's like when you know that you make plural to make it clearer. To make it plural, the nouns, one way to make it plural is to add S. Okay? However, when you use verbs, as we said, you do not put S if the subject uh, is singular or is plural. For example, you say, um, uh, she rides a bike. So it's singular, but you put S to the verb because it's singular. The doer of the action is singular. And if it is plural, then you don't put an S. Okay? However, I and you do not follow that rule. So you don't say I eats. You just say I eat. So there will be difficulty if it's the first time you are learning this, and you might also put S on the verb. No, like you drives instead of you drive. Okay, so that is with the use of verbs. Earlier, I also wanted to point out in the nouns. No, when you make a plural version of the noun, and what happens is you put an S, and then later on you learn about the verbs, and now some students, some children, they have difficulty applying the rule because it says whatever is with S is plural, like in the nouns. But in the verbs, if it is singular, then you put an S. That's another example of possibility of negative transfer. So as a teacher, you need to emphasize that there is a different rule between how you use S to create the plural forms of nouns than it is when you use it with verbs. So that's the negative transfer. The near transfer refers between or happens when there is a very similar context between two things. This is also referred to as specific transfer. Like when a student is learning to use a new cell phone that is somehow similar to the one she had before, like our example with Note 4 and Note 7. So that is near transfer. The more similar what you knew before and what you know now, uh, what you're learning now, the easier the learning would be, the easier the transfer would be. Like maybe if you already know how to drive a car that's not automatic, and then the bus is also not automatic, so somehow you use it to learn how to your knowledge of driving a car into driving the truck. Okay, so this is the one as we were mentioning earlier about the similarity. So here is an S4 and S5. So it becomes easier because they are similar models. Now, far transfer refers to transfer between contexts that on appearance seem remote and alien to one another. And this is also called general transfer. No? So this is similar to using an analogy. No? That if you understand uh, one thing and you apply this understanding to another, it makes it easier for you to understand. Like the goose that lays the golden eggs to managing corporations. So Covey said we should take care of the goose rather than kill it. So you understand that we need to take care of the people in our corporation, our employees, so that productivity will continue. No? So this is very similar to Ausubel's concept, and Ausubel's concept of you remember the concept of Ausubel, where you use an analogy to understand a new concept. Can you think about it? Did you say combinatorial learning? So you are right if you said combinatorial learning. No? So it is very similar to what we call as far transfer. Okay. So for example, if you use chess principles and strategies in applying it to strategies in investing practices and policies. So you see, as you apply learning, uh, what you have previously learned, it may involve positive transfer, it may involve negative transfer, or near transfer and far transfer. So you can watch this again so that you'll see the differences. But the point is, as a teacher, we should be able to help our students apply what it is that we want them to learn in real life or when they go out. So transfers got a lot to do with application of what we taught them and what they have learn from us. Okay, so we will continue in a while with the part two of this module.